Hi, this is Scott Seaton, Music Director of the North State Symphony, and this is another edition of Musician Accents, a platform for you, our audience, to get to know our musicians a little better. And with me today is Leah Carl, our principal violist. Leah, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Scott. How are you?
I'm doing well, all things considered,
Yeah.
and it's certainly been an interesting few months behind us, and I'm sure many more interesting months ahead. But
Yes.
how have you been holding up through all of this?
I feel very, very fortunate. I have a separate job teaching elementary school that I've been lucky enough to continue receiving, a paycheck from them. So
Right,
I feel very lucky. It's also kept me busy. The distance learning platform is exciting, but when you're thrown into it, um, right away and wanting to make things smooth for your students, especially when they're 5 and 6 and their parents are learning along with them. You want to
right.
you wish you could work out all the kinks ahead of time, but it's been I try to look at the exciting side of it and just the puzzle part of it, figuring it out, and just thinking how can I best serve my students and their families, my community. And I love what you've been doing here with the orchestra and the musician accents.
Well, thank
I
you.
Yeah, it's been different and out of need, but I also think it's fun. Dare I say fun?
Yeah.
So we're taking the journey one day at a time. But I appreciate you asking me to be on here, and I'm excited about what the symphony is doing in this time.
Yeah, yeah, and I can't wait to actually be doing things as a symphony again. No
Yes.
doubt. Speaking about distance learning, have you found that doing things in an online environment has been more taxing, more of an energy drain than actually being in a physical environment with your students?
That's a really good question. The answer is yes and no.
Uh-huh.
Physically taxing, definitely not.
Hmm.
Um, I teach first grade, so it might be different for other grade levels,
Right,
but for
right,
first grade, you don't sit down. You're running around. We try to keep the kids busy and give them movement breaks. So that means you're always doing the movement breaks, and so I love teaching and I love being in the physical classroom,
yeah.
but it is, physically exhausting at the end of the day. The emotional, the emotional exhaustion is the same, whether it's distance learning or in the classroom learning.
Right.
The distance learning exhaustion is a little bit higher just because I try to work with my grade level within our district and make
Hmm.
sure that we're presenting a united front and also presenting equitable access to information across the district and throughout schools in California,
Right.
providing the best resources for our families, but making sure that we're all kind of on the same page. So there's a lot to kind of research before we get into our teaching day,
Uh-huh.
and families' needs are very, very different. You have with older kids, they can be a little bit more independent, but with 6-year-olds, if both their parents are fortunate enough to be still working,
Yeah.
they can't necessarily be on Google Meet for a class at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
um, but I can't necessarily do the same class at 9 and 12 and 3 and 6 p.m. So it's figuring all that out. That was a little bit exhausting, but like I said, also a little bit of a fun puzzle, and it's all worth it for the kids. So
Right, right. Do you are the plans in place to continue in such an environment throughout the summer and fall months, or how is that going?
so for the summer, for elementary, I don't
Mhm.
first grade doesn't do a summer school, so
Okay.
summer they're officially off. It doesn't feel like a huge difference from
Right,
the
right.
distance learning for them, but as far as next year
Mhm.
goes, our district had a couple weeks ago sent out a plan. There were three options for how we would begin the next school year: either fully in the classroom, fully distance learning, or a blend of both.
Yeah.
We most recently at a board meeting were told that right now, or as of last Monday, we would be starting the school year in the classroom with extra precautions taken to meet the social distancing requirements. And every school would have a quarantine room, and
Right.
masks would be optional. You know, enough distancing within the student desks as possible within each individual classroom.
Mhm.
But as we know right now, the most constant thing that we can be sure of is that things will change.
Oh
So
yeah.
there are 2 months in between now and then, and so I envision a lot of revising to that plan. But
Right.
the goal is to start the year with um, as much being in the classroom as possible, because studies have shown that's the best learning environment.
Optimal situation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that mid-August when that's supposed to start?
Our district starts at the beginning of August.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, so I
Gotcha.
think August 6th is our first date, first
I see.
school. Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, let's backtrack a little bit. First, I want to give a special shout out to your chair sponsor at the North State Symphony, and that's Diane Fossum. And our chair sponsors are amazing people who we couldn't do without their support. And a lot of our musicians are fortunate to have the very unique relationships with them and get to know them on a more personal basis, as well as our hosts for housing when our musicians come from out of town. So that's something that really makes the North State Symphony special, is that we're able to get beyond the concert hall and really build on a lot of these personal relationships, and give our patrons the opportunity to see behind the curtain as much as possible. So thank you, Diane. We very much appreciate all the amazing things that you're doing for the North State Symphony. And
And
please.
Scott, if I could just add, I'm so grateful to Diane and to all the host families and sponsors. That's one of the things that really struck me as beautiful and unique about North State Symphony when I first joined 3 years ago.
Mhm.
Was I was really nervous my first set coming up here, and then staying with somebody I didn't know, and each time you stay possibly with somebody different. But I have met the most incredible, wonderful, generous, kind people through my hosts and chair sponsor, and I'm really um, struck by what a beautiful community Chico and Reading have, and I'm very grateful because you've made the experience so much more not relaxing but less stressful than
Right.
it could have been, and sometimes is in other situations. But it's been really
Right.
wonderful.
Well, that's good to hear. And, especially if you go in somewhere and you're just thrown into rehearsals, and, it is sort of all work and none of that middle ground. Yeah, I can certainly understand that. And thank you for the comments. I think, the North State Symphony does have something very special, and I can't wait to be able to exercise all of those opportunities again sometime soon.
Yes.
So let's get into, so you just said you've been with the symphony for you're going on year 4, right?
Yes.
Coming up. And so let's talk about how you got started in music. What age did you start? What was your first instrument? And how did you get here?
A very long and circuitous path is the short answer. I grew up in a very musically supportive family. My parents both dabbled in music. My extended family had some really amazing musicians in it. So I started playing. My parents had both my sisters and I start piano when we were in 3rd grade, and I had said that I really wanted to play the violin, and they weren't, renting an instrument is expensive, was expensive for us, and so they weren't sure that I really would be dedicated to it, and so they thought it was just a phase, it'll pass. So I started on piano. Yeah. And then when it came to 4th grade, I still was like, I really want to play the violin. And so my parents were like, okay, we'll rent an instrument. In 4th grade at that time in my school, we were allowed to choose an instrument, and violin was one of them. So I started in this public school system. And then in 5th grade, I was still enjoying doing it. So my parents thought, okay, well, we have a neighbor down the street who teaches violin. And so my mom, they did sort of a service trade.
Mhm.
I got violin lessons, and my mom traded house cleaning services. And so I was able to take lessons. And I remember one of my first, I think my second lesson, I had been asked by my teacher to come back and tell her why I wanted to play the violin. And
Mhm.
I did not want to go to that second lesson. I love the violin, but I thought my answer's not good enough. And my answer
Uh,
was simply, I really like the way it sounds. And I thought, she's going to kick me out of her studio and she's going to say that's not a good enough reason for this instrument. But uh, as we can tell, she didn't, and I am still enjoying string instruments. So my first instrument was technically piano, and
mhm.
then I started violin, and gradually told my parents, "Oh, I'm so busy with school and violin, I shouldn't take piano anymore." So I stopped doing piano, which most of us regret later on in life, but I can still plunk away at a few tunes.
So how many
Uh,
years did you play piano?
I, oh gosh, one is probably 5.
Okay.
Um, yeah, it that my memory is not all that great. So, but I just remember if I started in 3rd grade, 5 is probably right because I was not taking piano lessons in high
I see.
school. I
So you
did go
put
back,
piano aside and focused on violin.
yes, and I joined our community youth orchestra when I was in high
Mhm.
school, um, and then uh, and then I went. So my senior year in high school, I had an illness, and so I was in the hospital for about half the year. And so
Mhm.
all my college plans were thrown up in the air because I wasn't able to go do any auditions, or, really, I had to fill out applications from where I was and send them off. So I couldn't do
Yeah.
interviews and things like that. But this sort of ties in Terry Bonner, concertmaster at North State Symphony. Um, when she was teaching violin and viola at CSU Stanislaus in Turlock
Mhm.
when I was going into college, and our youth orchestra conductor was also the orchestra conductor at CSU Stanislaus, and so he said, that was a school that my dad, had ties with, and so he could help facilitate the admissions process and got the paperwork. Because he was a high school counselor,
Mhm.
so they said, well, if you declare music as a major, then we'll give you scholarship money. I said, okay, music is my major.
That works.
And yeah, it worked. And so then I got to study with Terry Bond, and that just, that was a really important time in my life. I kind of hadn't been playing for that last year of high school. So I began playing again, and I just had this insatiable thirst for everything musical related. I just wanted to do everything.
Mhm.
So in college, I was at Stan State for 5 years because I was doing a music education major, violin performance, and biology degrees.
Oh,
And
wow.
so, yeah, like I said, I wanted to do everything: um, play music at night, in the evenings for orchestras, and like solve, uh, you know, be a doctor during the day. Lots of
Right.
different ideas. And part of really, I know this is kind of a long answer, but part of what brought it made me brought me where I am today is that I was given so many wonderful opportunities at CSU Stanislaus. It was not
Mhm.
a huge music department, and so I was able to try a lot of different things. I played French horn for a semester in symphony band.
Wow.
I played upright bass in symphony band and did a little conducting with that. And I practiced when we did our summer music program for younger students through the university. I would practice reading all the different clefs, including alto clef, so that I could help the different students. Here's what your part's going to sound like, or so. Um, I just wanted to learn to do everything, and I especially remember going to a percussion
Mhm.
ensemble concert, and I was sitting up in was sitting up a little higher, probably in the back. And I just remember looking at and seeing these percussionists going around and getting to play all these different instruments. And I was like, I want to do that. So I practiced until I could join the percussion ensemble, and did that for a while. And that was just amazingly fun.
Wow.
So I just tried to take advantage of every opportunity, and part of that was just because I didn't really have a specific direction that I wanted to go in. I was just so excited about life and music and everything that was involved in it. So, but to go back to how I got to where I am today, one of the things I did when I was in I was in a trio during my undergraduate years. We didn't have a lot of music majors, and so there wasn't a huge chamber music program at that time. But a couple of friends and I formed a violin, clarinet, piano trio, and we just went through that repertoire like crazy. We really were excited, and different faculty would volunteer to coach us. And then we were like, well, what else can we play? And the clarinetist was like, well, what about the Kegelstadt trio, which, if you don't know, is written by Mozart, and it's not for violin, clarinet, piano, it's for clarinet, viola, piano. And I thought, well, viola has 4 strings. It's, you hold it the same way. It's got a bow. How hard can that be? And I've pretended to read.
Right?
Oh yeah, they look the same, So anyway, so I was like, I can do this. So I borrowed a school's viola, and if you don't know about violas, the size matters for sure. Violin, when you get full grown, then you have a full size violin. There is no full size viola. You can get the one that the school had was a 20-inch viola, and I don't have that long of an arm. So it was a bit of a lot of a stretch, literally and figuratively. But I was determined to do it. I thought, for the good of our trio, and just because I thought it would be a fun challenge. That memory stands out because that was the first time I thought, okay, I'm just going to try viola. And I remember I was reading it, and I knew that little thing in the alto clef pointed to C. So I was like, okay, and I'm practicing it, and I am having to shift up into really high positions on the viola. And I thought, and I never got to use the C string. And I'm like, well, this is silly. I could play this on the violin. And why did they write it for viola? And then I went and I listened to a recording. And it was the first time I'd listened to a recording. And it dawned on me, I was reading it an octave too high. So I got to know C clef a little bit better and realized that's not just C, it's middle C. And then I started enjoying viola more because I got to use the C string. So that was a kind of an embarrassing, silly moment, but also kind of cool. So I became what we call in the string business a switch hitter, which made me more marketable for gigs, like playing for weddings and stuff, because I could play violin if they needed a violinist, but I could also play viola if they needed a violist. And that was great because I could cover 3 out of the 4 string quartet positions. So I was almost guaranteed if they needed someone, I could fill that job. And so that was a lot of fun also, just playing for weddings and all different venues. And so and
I worked for North State Symphony too.
Exactly, yeah. So I grew up in the Central Valley, so I stayed there to teach music at start a music program at a private Catholic high school. And then I decided to go for my master's, and it was in chamber music performance and still on violin, but I still, borrowed a school viola and was able to do that kind of thing. And then I started teaching and doing a lot of stuff in the Bay Area on both violin and viola, playing in what we call the Freeway Philharmonic. Driving all over the place. But again, my desire to do lots of different things kept creeping in. And so I got a job as part-time at a doctor's office, working in the reception area. And then I got introduced to aerial arts, flying trapeze. And so I just started doing all this stuff, and I thought, oh, I can, have the instrument and then be doing, those silks and do a thing and then play. And I just had all these grandiose ideas, none of which really panned out, not
Uh-huh.
surprisingly. But I finally decided I'm kind of burning myself out trying
Mhm.
to do everything. And so I moved back to the Central Valley and eventually decided to go back to get a teaching credential. And everyone thought it would be in music, but I thought, well, I enjoy doing lots of different things, but I would rather have one employer and have that
Right.
employer not be me and work at one place. So I'm teaching elementary school, every subject but music. But now I'm actually able to have music as my hobby, not
Mhm.
not also my sole source of income or one of the sources of income. And so
Right.
when I did the credential program, I sort of stopped music and I said, I'm sorry. I'm gonna I'm gonna just really focus on this job and then add music in when I'm ready. And again, Terry Bond, our concertmaster, she was instrumental, uh, no pun intended, in helping me get back into music. And a big thing from both her and Carol Jacobson, our principal cellist, they both kept encouraging me to audition for North State Symphony. And the principal and assistant principal violist positions came up, and so I thought, well, it's summer. I might as well, be working towards something. And so I worked on it, and here I am. I'm living the dream.
Yeah. Well, we're so happy that you took that chance and took the audition, and such a variety of experience that you've had. Do you still do any aerial art at all? Anything like that?
I haven't in the past couple years. No, actually, I take that back. I have. I was in Las Vegas for an educational conference, and
Mhm.
I thought, oh, they've got to have a trapeze, studio somewhere. It's Las Vegas, and I found one. Interestingly enough, the one of the owners,
Mhm.
I used to do flying trapeze with her in the Bay Area when I was in the throes of learning all the aerial arts. So I walked into the class and was like, I know you. I was very out of shape, but I really enjoyed it. So any excuse I can get to get back into it, I will jump at.
Right, right. Um, do you in all of this background and obviously you're doing great things with orchestras now. In all of that on your road to being a musician, do you have maybe one defining moment that said, "This is it. This is why I have to do music"? Are there any moments like that for you?
Um, I think I've had a number of mini moments, and some of them
Mm.
I alluded to in my path. I
Like the
just
percussion ensemble, that sort of thing.
exactly, yeah, and really, really a very pivotal moment was that when I started my undergraduate work was working with Terry, because that bond that she and I created, um, that's I've been able to do so many different musical things with with her support and with her encouragement.
All
And
right.
she's invited me to to play in different ensembles, new music works, that I just that's really exciting for me. And so I she's a key person.
Oh, absolutely. And since you brought it up, how important is new music to you?
um, I love new music. When in school, if you play any instrument, the composition students, they're going to ask you to play, to play their pieces. And
Mhm.
so I've always, I mean, you can't be in percussion ensemble if you can't count. And so I've always loved counting. Phrasing has been the hardest thing for me
Mhm.
musically. And I took piano again in college, and my piano professor once mentioned that I would be really good at playing the organ. And I asked why, and he said, because you don't need expression, you don't need to play with expression.
Oh.
So he kind of meant it jokingly, but it was also very true.
Hmm.
um, So I love the challenge that new music presents. There's no recording that, or usually there aren't many recordings. It's not part of the codified. This is how you play this particular piece. Um,
Right.
and so there's freedom in that, and I love counting. It's a puzzle to me, and I love figuring it out. And I also I have a version of perfect pitch, not
Mhm.
as amazing as a lot of people do, but I can jump around and hit random notes.
Uh-huh.
So, sometimes depending on what the style is in new music, it's not always um, very linear and melodic.
Right.
That not a melody that stands out and you can go away humming. But again, that's part of the challenge that I like.
Mhm.
So
So
I'm
it's
always
more
open.
about the oh yeah, so it's for you personally, it's more about the challenge of figuring something new out and then and
Yes.
crafting your own sort of way through it. I like
Yes.
that. Um, I noticed behind you you have a some J.S. Bach,
Oh,
but do you
yes.
do you have a favorite composer or a favorite set of composers that
Oh,
you like to play out of the standard repertoire?
well, to start with new music, one composer that really stands out to me is, um, sorry, I had to write down, where's, Witold Lutoslawski.
Oh, of course,
Um,
yeah.
so there was a piece that I really dug into with a pianist when I was in grad school, of his, just called Partita. It was for violin and piano, and
Uh-huh.
we dug into that. And she was similar to me. We took it apart, we dissected it, we put it back together, and it was just an amazing experience to work on that.
Wow.
And so I really admire his work, and I enjoy playing it.
Hmm.
Um, and then, Stravinsky's not necessarily modern, but
Yeah.
it's considered neoclassicist. But I really enjoy playing Stravinsky again, the play of
Mhm.
rhythms and things like that. And then to go to more traditional music that people would think of, or composers people would think of today. Of course, the three B's: Brahms, Bach, and Beethoven.
Mhm.
Um, you know, if you're a string player, I think you kind of have to love those, and
Oh, of
I do.
course. Well, that's good to know. And certainly a lot of my favorites as well. Do you find like if you had to lean one direction, do you lean more 20th century or do you lean more sort of uh, Baroque, classic, romantic, that sort of thing?
I think it depends on what the context is. For chamber music, I
Hmm.
lean more toward romantic, classical, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
For for some orchestra pieces, I mean, everything by Brahms is just beautiful, amazing,
Yeah.
and Beethoven symphonies. But also with orchestral music, I do enjoy doing the new music, like I said, because of that challenge.
Right.
So um, so yeah, it kind of depends on the context,
Oh,
whether
of
it's
course.
chamber music or full orchestra.
It's good to be well rounded.
Yes.
And finally, one of my last questions to you is: out of your 3 years with the North State Symphony, do you have any favorite moments, favorite concerts, favorite repertoire we've done? Anything that really stands out?
you know, yes, I have a couple. Um, One thing overall is that while some concerts or pieces stand out to me, the whole 3 years have just been really incredible. Like like I've told you, my most of my musical career has been with violin, and
Hmm.
so it's really, really exciting to play the viola part to symphonic works that I've played first or second violin on before. It's
Right.
like I'm approaching a new piece, and all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, that's my good friend, but it's from a different perspective. And I love that I get a more complete picture of the work. So all of those experiences have meant a lot to me with North State.
Mm.
No one can forget the Stravinsky screams, so of course that's definitely on there. Um, I really enjoyed, uh, like I mentioned, Brahms symphonies,
Mhm.
and when we did Tchaikovsky 5 and the Ruslan and Ludmilla Overture, that
Wow.
concert in I think May 2018. I For some reason I just love the energy of the Glinka Ruslan Ludmilla overture.
Right.
And so it was just so fun that was part of my second season, I think, to get to play that on, as a violist.
Oh yeah. I mean,
And
what a fast and intense, crazy piece that is.
yes, yeah, it's just totally awesome ride. Exactly. Well, I could never be a brass player. I can't like do the tonguing thing, but and then the string only pieces always, just are so lush and gorgeous to be a part of. Just this big, massive string sound.
Oh yeah,
So
I just listened to this morning. Actually, I just randomly threw on our recording of the Barbara Adagio, and it's just what a rich, full performance that was of that piece. I
yes,
thoroughly enjoyed it.
yes,
I hope you all. I mean, it seems like everyone got into it equally, and that's what really makes those special moments. So
yes,
it's nice to be able to relive that.
It is. Sometimes I don't like rewatching
Oh, I don't
myself
either,
play,
but
but
yeah,
that
I
one,
think that's. Mhm.
yeah, it was great. And I mean, one more. I know I'm talking way too much.
No, please.
But my first rehearsal with North State, I just remember, we were talking at the beginning about the wonderful community of support that North State Symphony has with our hosts and our sponsors and all of that, but also the orchestra members themselves. I mean, I had already known Terry and Carol, but everyone was so warm and welcoming, and it did not feel awkward. It wasn't like, who are you coming in,
Right.
And the viola section, our viola section is just great. We have just, it's just, we have people who have so many different specific talents. It's just so much fun to work with each one of them because they all bring something new, something different to the table. And I feel like that brings us as a section that just makes us all the better.
Oh, exactly.
And so it's a lot of fun to play with that section, and to get to lead it is just really an honor and a privilege.
Well, it's certainly great to have you as the leader of our wonderful viola section. And you spoke about North State really is a great blend of unique personalities, and I did notice that this predates you, but I did notice that immediately when I walked into my first rehearsal for my audition concert in February 2015. You notice there's this very welcoming atmosphere. There's this palpable energy. There's this curiosity. Everyone's talking and excited. I mean, there's this eagerness to start the creative process, and that's what I really loved about the symphony. And it's definitely not that way wherever you go, because I've worked with plenty of orchestras that you walk in for the first rehearsal, and it's like moving a mountain. Like it takes so much energy, and there's sometimes it's just dead in the room, and there's nothing as an artistic leader you can do for that, and it's a shame. But I'm so privileged to have such a unique ensemble like North State, because it's so much fun every time I get to step onto the podium and work with you all.
It is. It's so much fun for us too, because you bring a lot of energy, and so we feed off of that as well. And it is, even for an orchestra member, you can feel that isolation, even though you're in the middle of playing. You're playing in a section. You're all playing the same part, and in an orchestra, you're all playing the same piece. But with North State, it's I enjoy playing with it because my love is chamber music, but North State has that close-knit feel of that I love about chamber music, where we're all there for the same purpose, and we all just can't wait to get started and make the music together. It's not, okay, I'm playing my part and I think I'm with the conductor, so I'm just gonna keep going. My tempo's the best.
Right.
I feel like everyone's there because they're passionate about it.
Exactly. I feel like we are all listening to each other like it is an intimate chamber music setting, and that's really nice to have.
Yes.
Well, Leah, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you and getting to know more about your background. And I hope everyone who listens to this, learns something about you that they didn't know before. And I hope that we can all get back into the concert hall as soon as possible. And until then, we'll just keep doing what we're doing and trying to, do what we can and engage people online and in safe virtual environments. But
Yes, absolutely.
yeah.
And
So
the pleasure's been mine. Thank you so much, Scott. I've
well,
enjoyed
thank
this.
you. And I hope you, your friends and family are all continuing to stay safe through all of this. And I hope to see you again very soon.
Yes.
All right.
I second
Thank you.
that. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.